All right. So for our next story, I was fortunate enough to contribute to an article that was recently run on CNN in regards to nomads and how we're dealing with coronavirus. Miss Channon Hodge was nice enough to come and join us on the show today. Hello, Shannon.
Hey, Matt.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Happy to be talking to you again.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you on and talk a little bit about what's going on in your world and a little bit about the article. I'm going to pull up the article here and would love to just
Mhm.
hear a little bit about what you learned while you were talking to a bunch of nomads all throughout the globe.
The funny thing, talking to you, one of the main things I remember is that after I asked you like a million questions, I said, "Hey, do you have anything else? Do you have anything else to add?" And you were like, "Hey, how are you doing? How's New York City?"
Mhm.
It dawned on me that like we're actually having a conversation.
We are people. Yep, we can't
we
forget
were just
about that.
we were just sitting out in the desert waiting to connect with someone. So we just chatted for another like hour about all sorts of things. So that was nice. It's important to remember, and it's nice to like really connect with people even while I'm doing work. So it's
Yeah.
great.
Awesome. Well, I was super stoked to be asked to be a part of the article, and I thought it turned out really well, especially how you were able to get representatives from all across the nomadic field from different parts of the
Mhm.
globe, as well as RVers versus van lifers. I just thought you did a great job of kind of pulling it all together.
Yeah, it's and I think the important thing and the thing that was like probably most interesting to me was talking to you guys in the US and then talking to like Nate Murphy in Spain and talking to
Yeah.
Bryce in New Zealand, because it is very different there. It seems like in the US, I did not understand the whole thing about public land and national forests, and that was like my mind exploded. And thank God you helped explain that to me, like dispersed camping and all of that, because I'd never heard of it before.
Oh, yeah.
Um, you guys really need to know that stuff
Yeah.
cold, but you also, I think, have more opportunities and more freedoms here than you might in Europe. And so that would be a cool thing to ask Nate about. And it's a really important thing to watch. You were saying like, about public lands and national forests and how they're being managed and where they're headed and how much public land we have. So that's, eye-opening.
No, 100%. I mean, just reading the article and learning about how, like Nate's specific instance, where people, van lifers, are getting kind of shooed away and moved along and really
Mhm.
don't have a place to go. And they have three different types of police that are monitoring and coming in on. And so I definitely find gratitude in that, but I also am, trying to keep up with it because you never know how our situation is going to change. And that's really one of the reasons why I want to continue to bring on people like yourself to get a different perspective on what's going on and how we can plan for the future.
Yeah, I mean, one reason we did this story was because I watch tiny house and van life videos incessantly, for hours
Yeah.
and hours and hours ever
Give
since
it
I
up to
figured out.
Jenna. Shout out
Yes,
to Jenna, Tiny House Giant Journey.
tiny house. I watched like probably 100 of those videos. And ever since I learned how to put YouTube on my TV, it like changed my life. But But the reason we started doing the article was because we'd been hearing a lot from actually RVers who were saying that RV parks were closed and national parks were closed. And I thought, oh, I got to talk to my van lifers. And so it was
Yeah,
so cool to actually be able to talk to people that I've been like watching on YouTube for 2 years. So,
I love
but
it.
people are having a hard time, and it is interesting to see how vastly different those situations are. And I think a lot of that is dependent on where you are specifically.
Yeah, and that brings up a good point. I'm interested to hear your take on what different states are doing because I know it's very drastically different based on what state you're in here in the United
Mhm.
States and how they're choosing to deal with it. What are you seeing as far as where travel's going and the future of interstate and inter country travel?
Yeah, I think it's so important for you guys especially to pay attention to local news, And unfortunately, local news places have been really hard hit for a while. And it's only getting worse. And thankfully, you can still, NPR and local radio stations are still doing a great job. But I'm from Massachusetts, and so being in New York City, everything hit New York City so quickly. And I have a family member who called New York ground, the coronavirus here is at ground zero, which is a horrific term, and I hope no one ever repeats that.
Yeah.
But it was interesting starting in New York City to see it starting here. We understood the gravity of it. But then talking to family in Massachusetts who really didn't understand it and were still thinking that they needed to go to funerals and were still, not understanding what social distancing and how important that really is and how fast the virus can spread was really scary. And so we're seeing it ripple across from state to state. Of course, South Dakota's been in the news because it hit a meatpacking plant. Anywhere that, even if you live in a rural area, if there are places where people are coming together in large numbers, such as factories, there's potential for spread. And so we might not see it hit everywhere as big as it is in New York. And we certainly won't, because we were talking about, New York has public transportation. But there is going to be a ripple effect, and you've got to really pay attention to the local governments in each of these places, especially if you're going to be traveling there.
Yeah. And what do you think when it comes to international travel? Because a lot of us in the nomad community, we do a lot of overseas travel, and a lot of my friends are saying they don't know when they're going to be able to get on a flight again. And I was wondering, do you know what it's looking like for the future of air travel internationally?
Yeah, I mean, that's a big question. I think one thing that I've been really looking at a lot is you have to think about places are really hurting right now. Places will be devastated and they may not exist for travelers in the future. When you're going somewhere, you want to think about, even if they're offering deals, even if they've opened, even if even if flights are going back and forth into these countries, and that might start to happen in Asia first because they were the first to really see any of this hit. You want to think about, is the government, do you trust the information that you're getting from that country? Let's say you're going somewhere and they're saying coronavirus never really hit here and we have very low numbers. Well, if that's a place where you find information where you've just not trusted the information previously, you might want to think twice about whether you trust what they're saying about coronavirus, because they might say it's not there, but it might be there. And then you don't want to get into a situation where you're there and you're stuck and you're not going to be able to come back in. That's going to be really key. Also, is you might be able to go somewhere, but you might not be able to get back.
Yeah. That's my nightmare. I'm like, I don't want to be in a third world country at a time when the healthcare isn't there and the regulations could become super stringent. And as a foreigner, what rights do you have? Is a lot of unknowns that, I'm worried is going to have a lot of us pulling back on our travel plans.
Yeah, you want to really pay attention to the State Department. I mean, hear this is a level 3 travel and a level 2 travel, and
Yeah,
nomads, you're not always paying attention to that because you want to go to the crazy place, you want to go to the adventurous spot, but that is also very indicative of how much effort the government is going to go to in helping you get back to where you need to be.
So State Department is one to keep an eye on. What else should we be watching? Are there any countries that we want to keep an eye on, or any statistics that maybe if we're not really following along all the time and we're just checking in every once in a while, what's something that would be valuable to keep an eye on?
Yeah, I mean, I think you want to look at some of the places where coronavirus has hit hardest and first. And so that is Asia, yes. Asia is starting to reopen. China's starting to reopen. They at least reopened some domestic travel. And they're starting to see little blips there. They're starting to see maybe a little bit of a recurrence. But you really want to pay attention to places that are kind of like us a little bit. So,
Okay.
Italy, was very hard hit very early on, but they also have an older population.
Yeah.
But they think that maybe they are starting to reach that peak, and starting to understand how they're going to come out of that peak can be really indicative for us. So I would pay attention and also just like pray for them because if it goes well for them, it could go well for us
That'll
too.
bode well for us. Interesting.
Mhm.
Well, I hope they do well. I know that they've been hit hard, and it's such an amazing. I have a lot of nostalgic memories backpacking through
Yeah,
Italy, so I hope that others get to
yeah.
do that as well in the future.
I mean,
S-
yeah, you got to think about how all of these places are so dependent on us going there.
Yeah,
I
and how
mean,
we're gonna reopen that and make it
mhm,
accessible for people. Yeah.
yeah,
Well, I really appreciate you asking me to be a part of your awesome article. And if anybody wants to
yeah,
read that article, they are more than welcome to go on our website, thegoodvibecollective.com, where we have it listed, as well as on my website. But go to the Good Vibe Collective and you can check it out. As well as, I just want to personally thank you for keeping us up to date with what's going on. I hope I can keep in touch with you, and maybe we can have you
yeah,
come
definitely.
on later on and give some more updates on what's going on in your world.
Yes, I want to learn. I feel like you opened my eyes to even more about the alternative lifestyle and the nomadic lifestyle. And like, I want to know like so much more. So I hope you guys do well. And I hope, some great things come out of this experience. So yeah, I'll see you guys on YouTube.
Yeah, well, and I don't make acquaintances. I only make friends, Shannon. So
Okay.
I'm happy to call you a friend, and I look forward to keeping in touch because I've enjoyed chatting with you and hearing your perspective. So again, thank you so much for being a part of this, and thanks again, and I'll see you soon.
Thanks. Bye, guys.
Awesome.